Good morning, beautiful Maitreya tribe. Please excuse the way I look this morning. I've literally had like 2 hours sleep. I'm finished. I'm absolutely finished. But here we are, and there we have it. Good morning. Welcome to today's little chat. I promised one on some different healing topics a couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. So we're going to start with divorce. It's a big one. A lot of relationships have ended this year. Please just don't get stuck on the term like divorce as such. This can be about long-term separations and things as well. I'm just referring to divorce to make it kind of simple. Okay. Guys, thank you so much for all the likes, shares, comments. Please keep it up. Our algorithms are changing. For those of you who are new to the tribe, welcome. My name is Mara Scalacci. I'm a psychic medium, Reiki master, and metaphysical teacher. And today I'm in full tea snob throttle because it's a tea day today. I need tea. It's my crutch. Okay, guys. So what I wanted to talk to you a bit about today is the other side of divorce, coming out of a divorce. Okay, I know that when I went through mine, it was one of the. To be honest, at this point, to date, it's been the most traumatic and the most heinous experience that I've had to go through. Now, I'm not talking about like losing loved ones to death or anything like that. I'm talking about like actual decisions that have been made to change parts of your life. Okay, for mine, it was absolutely heinous. I really, really highly, strongly do not recommend. However, it happens. Life happens, and people change, and we grow apart, and things change. Okay, so I wanted to speak to you about a couple of things that I would have loved to have known going into this, and I kind of hope that it just helps a few people out there. The first thing I want to look at is how we are expected to feel, okay, when we are the ones who have called for the divorce. Okay, because that was a big one for me. That was an absolutely big one for me. The first thing that came to mind was everyone was like, but you wanted the divorce. Yes, I called for the divorce. I initiated the divorce. That doesn't necessarily mean I wanted it on a soul level. It also doesn't mean that it makes it any easier for me. Okay. So I kind of found that people were quick to judge me on that. They were like, well, how could you be so upset about this calling for this divorce? Or like, how can you be so upset and still miss this person and miss the life you had, but you want it out. You want it out. Well, yes, my friend, because circumstances got to a point where I couldn't actually take it anymore. It kind of was like a survival tactic. It was self-protection. So when that happens, it doesn't necessarily always mean that you don't love the person that you're walking away from. I mean, I was still madly in love with my ex-wife. God, at that point, I was like absolutely still besotted with her. Even after everything we'd been through as a couple and all of the challenges we had faced and things like that. I mean, it took me a full 2 years, and I'm not talking about to get over the marriage. I'm talking about in the divorce. It took me 2 full years to fall out of love with her. Okay. So for me, it was a very difficult decision to make. It wasn't something that was just a quick whim. Oh, yeah, you know what? I'm done with this now. I've had enough. I'm done. For me, at that stage, I lost the love of my life. And that was a tough call to make. It was a very tough call, but it was either her or me. And I had to choose me at that point because it just wasn't something that I could continue with. And to be fair, in my situation, she had actually called for a separation, and I then had decided that about 4 or 5 weeks into it that I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much. I had been through too much. We as a couple had been through too much, and I didn't feel like I could hold on for too much longer. So here's some things that I kind of feel when we've called for the divorce that we need to know. We're still entitled to grieve it. In fact, it's a necessity. We have still changed our lives. Things have changed. Very, very often, residences change. Like you actually leave the home that you shared. If not, the energy in the home changes because somebody leaves, or a couple of people leave. Maybe if for example, the other partner takes the children or takes the pets, or there's a different energy in that space. So you actually have to grieve the changing of your life. And more than that, you're allowed to miss the person. This was a big one for me because people are like, I don't understand why you miss her. I don't understand. You're allowed to miss that person. They've been a part of your life, a big part, a solid, concrete part of your life, your everyday, your chosen family. They've been that for however long you guys were together. So you have every right to miss that person. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think that you are losing your mind. Well, you walked away, you didn't want the marriage anymore, you know, so how can you miss this person? You know, if they've done these things or these things have happened, let's not go to the blame route. Like if things have happened in the relationship that have caused you to walk away, why would you miss that? Well, because I'm a human being and I'm emotive, and those things come up. They do. You miss the person in bed next to you. You miss the morning routines. You miss the person either being there when you get home or them being coming home to you. All of those things are things that you are allowed to miss, and people take that for granted. They think that if you've called for the divorce, you're not entitled to those emotions anymore because you want it out. Okay, and that's BS, and I'm calling it. That was absolute bullshit. That kept me in such a difficult space for so very long because I was like, oh my God, I'm a failure even at divorce. Like, I'm getting this wrong because I'm not supposed to feel these emotions. Bullshit. If you miss the person, you miss the person, and you bloody well allowed to miss the person. Okay, they have been a part of your life. And I say this not because I didn't want children, but because I think it makes partings, I'm talking about logistically easier. We didn't have children, and as much as I'd wanted a family, we it wasn't meant to be. But for the people who have families and who have children with the partners that they're leaving, it makes it 10 times harder. So it's a whole different energy that goes around all of this. So just know that you know what, you actually are allowed to miss them because they have been such a vital part. And unless it's a very rare kind of situation, at some point, probably for a good period of that time, you loved that person. And that's something you have to remember as you're moving along through your healing. You actually have loved that person. For whatever reason or reasons, you've loved them. Okay, so I'm here to kind of say, you know what, don't let other people dictate how you do your divorce. And I'm talking about your healing from the divorce. I'm not talking about your actual divorce. I'm talking about your healing from the divorce now. Okay. And I think one of the biggest things that everyone felt, and I think, and please, I'm not just, if there are men watching this, I'm not doing the feminist thing. That's not what this is about. But I think people walk away, a woman especially though, we walk away, especially mothers, we try and hold on for the kids. We try and hold on to make sure that the kids are stable and that they have this life. And I think when we walk away from it, we actually feel like we have seriously failed because this marriage has fallen apart. And I think what people need to start seeing in life is that there are soul contracts, there are life lessons, there are karmic cycles. And all of these things influence how our life path plays out. I understand that I was killing a crazy karmic cycle with my ex-wife, crazy, crazy one. And we had to go through that. I had to go through a karmic cycle. It also taught me life lessons. It brought me into a place where I am a very different person now, but it's put me onto my soul path, okay, which I wouldn't have maybe gotten here as quickly, or if at all, if that hadn't happened, that tower moment of losing the marriage. So I think that there's a lot to process around these kinds of things, okay? And I think that it's easy for us to feel like a failure, but don't do that. Of all the things you're going to process and you're going to feel, rather see it as the end of a cycle as opposed to a failure. And I don't care how many marriages you've had. I don't care if you're on your third marriage or you're going through your third divorce or if you're going through your 10th divorce, okay? Unless, of course, even then it's not a failure, it's a choice. If you're choosing to just go systematically through, then that's a choice. And then, kudos to you, like if that's what you want to do. But that was a big one for me. I felt like such a failure that I couldn't have saved our marriage. And I tried everything I could possibly do, and I still couldn't save our marriage. So that's not a negative. It's not a positive space to be in while you're trying to go through your healing. So try and avoid that at all costs because it does kind of also keep you in that yeah kind of energy, that frequency that's not ideal. Okay. Now, the one thing that I really have taken away from my divorce, and I'm cracker at this, so please just take heed of this and learn from me. I can be quite great at falling into spaces of victimhood, and I don't like that about myself. It's one of the things I actually hate about myself. I hate. Let's rephrase that. Be kinder. It's one of the things I constantly try and work on. I do understand that numerologically it's in my numbers. It's one of the effects of one of my numbers in my life path number. But I fight it constantly. I don't like that side of myself. Now, when we go through a divorce, and if we feel like we've been the wrong partner, okay, now this is going to be touch and go, so don't kill me on this one, but just go with me and try and write it out with me. When we feel like we've been the wrong partner, okay, we can automatically go into that space of victimhood. Okay. And I have said this on one of my other videos. I must be the Fat Girl Guide or something like that. But I went through this phase of making a joke because humor is my factory setting. It's my survival. I go to humor every time. In the most inappropriate things, I'll laugh. I'll find something funny about it. And what kind of happened was I was making this joke about I got fat and she got everything. And that's exactly kind of what happened. Well, she didn't get everything, but you know what I mean? Like it was a story that I was telling myself because I was feeling sorry for myself. But what was actually happening is that I was eating my way through everything. I made no attempt to fight for anything. I just kind of left it. So there was a level of responsibility on my part. Okay, in the ending of the settlement and stuff like that, there was a huge responsibility on my part. There were choices that I made. Okay, but I stayed in that little joke, that story that I'd made. I stayed in that story and I made it my story. And as a result, it became my reality. So, huge warning sign here. Do not delve into victimhood. Okay. It's a natural process up front when things happen. We feel sorry for ourselves and we bloody well are allowed to. It's a shitty experience. It's not a cool experience to go through. But the minute you stay in that victimhood, okay, you start actually creating your new life and your new foundation from a place of victimhood. Now that's not an ideal situation at all. In no way, shape, or form is that the best way for you to move forward. Okay. And it's something that took me a very long time to recognize and to let go of. It took me a very long time to go, actually, you know what? I'm not a victim. I made choices. I made choices all along. And again, in that state of victim, people say, why are you upset about this? You still called for the divorce. Yes, but things happened in the marriage. And we both made decisions in the marriage that we couldn't come back from. And, it doesn't mean that that doesn't hurt us, that we aren't allowed to feel sorry for ourselves. But just a little word of warning, don't stay in that space of victimhood because it becomes very, very detrimental to you moving forward. And it can actually keep you stuck in the energy of your past for a very, very long time. Highly strongly do not recommend. Trust me, I was there for a very long time. So it becomes one of those things where you just have to start processing. Which then leads into the next thing, and I have spoken about this in some of my videos, and there is a video, blame versus responsibility as well. But at some point, it's a natural thing to blame. It is a natural thing to blame because we don't want to acknowledge that we have created situations in our own space. In fact, it's a human nature. We all do it. But at some point, the blame has to end, and you have to start looking at where you need to actually start taking responsibility for choices you made. Okay. Now, in taking responsibility doesn't mean you're shifting blame to yourself. It's acknowledging your role in the situation. Okay. So I allowed things to happen in the marriage, and I do say allowed because I actively chose to allow things to happen in the marriage that I should never ever have allowed for my own sake. But And for a long time, I blamed her for hurting me, for breaking my heart, which it did do. It did do. But I also broke my heart. I was half of the heartbreak. So what happens is when you start coming out of this like foggy kind of instant kind of like immediate, oh my God, I'm going through a divorce kind of thing, and you actually start your healing process. One of the fastest ways to heal is to start taking responsibility for where you're at in that, where you have um, it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be something as simple as, and it doesn't need to be an abusive relationship. It could just be that you were unhappy in that space or it wasn't working or whatever it is. But you have to acknowledge your role in where you've been at that. Maybe you stayed too long. Maybe you allowed things to happen that shouldn't have happened. Maybe you made choices that were not in your best interest. Okay. The minute you start actively taking responsibility for those things, is the minute that things start changing for you, because you start empowering yourself, you start powering up your solar plexus chakra, and you start going, ooh, okay, so I did this, I did that, never again, I'll never do this again, I'll never do that again, I can't do this, I can't do that again. And you start learning from it, which is what the whole process is actually about. These things come to teach us. Everything in life teaches us. Life is basically our greatest teacher, okay? It's why it's called the University of Life. And when you can start getting to that point, you know you're set for healing. You know that you're on your healing path when you can objectively sit there and go, okay, hold on. I shouldn't have made that call, or I should have said no to that, or why did I do that? That wasn't the brightest move. And you start being able to actually change the situation in your space. Okay. That is a very big one, because that leads you to the next stage, which is going to be the forgiveness. Okay. This is a very, very difficult stage. I can't lie. I know that people stay angry for years and years and years. Okay. So I think maybe I should just quickly mention the anger before we get to forgiveness, because they kind of go hand in hand. Anger is never a primary emotion. Never. You are angry because of something. So anger is always a secondary emotion. So when somebody angers you, stop and go, what is that showing me? What is that actually showing me? And normally it's because you are pissed off because they've broken a boundary. They've either disrespected your time or your energy. They've lied to you. They've betrayed you. They've hurt you. They've disappointed you. Whatever it is, anger then becomes a response to that emotion. Okay, so I feel like, for example, I'm trying to think of, I can't even remember. It was okay. Let's just say, let's just take this as an example. Let's just say, okay, I feel like she disrespects. This is a random one. It isn't actually true, but say someone disrespects my time. Okay, I do get angry at that. I get very frustrated at that, and my first emotion is that I feel disrespected. That's the key emotion. That's the primary emotion, is disrespect. I feel disrespected. Then I go to anger. Okay. And what you need to start doing is start seeing those emotions, because when you're starting, we all get angry after divorces. Let's be honest. I'm yet to meet a couple that hasn't been angry. All of my clients that come in at some point are angry about something. It's a normal response, because we're not actually facing the emotions that are triggering the anger. We're just looking at the situation and just being angry, which is fine for a while. Oh, I nearly spilled my tea. It's fine for a while, but you can't carry on like that. You can't carry on in a state of anger. That's why you get those old people who are bitter and twisted and like meh, because they stay angry. They don't look at what the primary emotion is, and they don't deal with that, which is crucial for your healing. It's absolutely crucial for your healing. Okay, so start doing that. When you get angry about something, what is it showing you? Have they disrespected your boundaries? Okay, maybe I'm not showing up enough with my boundaries. Maybe I'm not setting my boundaries strong enough. It could be that they could be narcissistic and they're never going to respect it. Find a different way of dealing with it then. But acknowledge that there is a secondary emotion involved when you are looking at anger. Okay, which then leads you to forgiveness. So once you have acknowledged that there's anger, and you start working your secondary emotions, and you're starting to take responsibility for your role in it, no blame, because blame gets you nowhere. Okay, it's really and truly, it's blame is their gateway to excuse. It's my constant saying. It's the gateway to excuse, because you can then make an excuse for anything if you can blame somebody else. Okay, so just responsibility, look at your anger, and then we go to forgiveness. And I think that, I know that this is a very difficult one to swallow, because especially when you are feeling angry, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling sad, you're grieving, you are disappointed in that this life hasn't worked out the way you wanted. You haven't got the white picket fence with the golden retriever running around, and the apple tree that you can go and pick things to make jam with. Like, that was trust me, my head goes to weird places. So you feel disappointed, you feel let down, you're like, it does all of these things to you. It creates this insecurity. Am I not good enough for love? Whatever it is that it creates in you. Okay, those things start bubbling up. The key for you to move forward, though, is to forgive. And the cracker is that you actually need to forgive yourself first. You need to understand, I always love the saying, we do the best we can with the tools that we have at that point in time. Okay, so if your tool set is not fantastic at that point in time, you're only going to be doing what you can do with that tool set. It's not going to be fantastic, but that's okay because you've got what you've got, and that you're doing the best that you can with what you have. All right. It doesn't mean that you get to go through life being shitty. It just means that you understand that that was all you could do at that given point in time, and that when you realize that there's so much more to add to your tool set, you start proactively working on that so that you deal with situations better. You recognize your triggers. You can forgive more easily. You don't make the same mistakes again. That's why we build our emotional toolbox, because we don't want to repeat what we've had in the past. That's not, that doesn't help us. It's not beneficial for us. Okay. So forgiveness is huge here. You do need to forgive the other partner. Um, but it's not for them. It's never for them. It's always for you. You cannot move on and you cannot be free if you are stuck blaming. And the minute you can let go of blame, you can actually start the forgiveness process. You'll never be able to forgive someone if you keep on blaming them for something. It's never going to happen. It's never ever going to happen. It's just not possible. So unless you relinquish the blame and step into responsibility that you two were consenting adults and that things went down that were shit and that should never have happened, or decisions were made that were dumbass decisions and they got you to this point, you're not going to be able to actually move forward. Fact. The minute you can start identifying emotions, responsibility, all of that stuff, the forgiveness can come. And I would say that the forgiveness starts being the final phase of your healing with your divorce, because when you can forgive that person, you are truly free. You're truly, truly free. But you're not going to forgive that person until you've forgiven yourself, because as a society we are so programmed to be guilt driven and shame driven, and we're a society that loves putting people down to make ourselves feel better. So if someone can make you feel guilty or shame you, they're sure as shit going to take the chance to do it. Let's not kill ourselves on that. There's no doubt about it. It's an inevitable, it's an inevitable thing. I mean, you just have to see some of the comments that come up on Facebook posts, and I'm sitting there going, God, you people need to get hobbies. Go and find out, take up knitting, crocheting. God, even if you go mosaic, do something, but take up a hobby. These trolls that sit there and they make the most horrific comments to people. And there's such a sadness around that. So unless you are going to step out of societal expectations of feeling guilty and shameful, you are going to struggle to move forward. It's a fact. If you can then start going, okay, you know what? And be kind to yourself, whatever being kind to yourself means. For me, it means a million different things. Being kind to myself meant that I started doing things like setting tables that I loved again. It meant that I started cooking properly for myself again, which I didn't do for ages. It meant a whole range of different things. It meant learning new skills that I've always wanted to do. So every year I learned 3 new skills. I set the task at the beginning of the year, and then I learned those 3 skills every year. That's self-love. That's growing my interest. That's growing my skill set. It's keeping me like mentally and creatively stimulated. So do whatever it is to be kind to yourself. And I'm going to say something here, and a lot of people are going to go, but block out who is no longer serving you around you. If your tribe are not supporting you 110%, block them. Okay. Because at the end of the day, it's one thing to rally around you and to go, okay, look, we get that this has been hard, and I'm talking about like 6 months, 8 months, or whatever, however long it takes you to deal with whatever it is. But you've been moping for like 2 or 3 years now, like, or let's go out tonight. You really need a night out. That's one thing. But when people are consistently putting you down, step away from the vehicle. Okay. I can tell you firsthand from all of the clients that I see, from my friends, from myself, we all do a good enough job of putting ourselves down. We don't need some idiot to come along and still just reiterate what we're already trying to stop feeling about ourselves. So if there are people around you that do not serve you, that do not stand by you and encourage you, take a break. You have every right to take a step back and take a break. Um, you know, your self-care and your self-love is nobody else's business. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to give reasons. You don't need to give explanation. You don't need to do any of that. You just need to do it. So my whole thing through this divorce and some of the biggest lessons I've learned, and it's something that when I see my clients and they're going through divorces and we're talking about and we're counseling through it, we look at what can they do to proactively make themselves feel better, because that's always the first starting point. Always the first starting point. Um, and self care comes in many different forms, as I've said, it comes in many different shapes, but it is the most crucial thing for you to do. If you can be kind to yourself, your healing journey will go a whole lot easier. And I can tell you this because I was very, very unkind to myself for the first maybe 3 years after my divorce. I was heinously unkind to myself. I can't even repeat what I used to say to myself in the mirror. It was just shocking. And all of that kind of stuff just created this energy of misery and um, failure, really, just failure on every single level. So I'm saying to you, take your time to grieve. It has to happen, guys. Even if you don't, even if you ended up not loving the person, even if you didn't like the person at the end, even if, there wasn't like, there wasn't such a high price to run somebody over with your car or whatever, and you wanted to run them over with your car, and you would have. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you emotionally feel about that person, you still need to grieve the cycle. It's a fact. And grieving is the emotional process. It is an emotional process. So grieve your cycle. Stop blaming. Start looking at your anger triggers and then start forgiving. And I promise you now, it makes the biggest difference. It makes such a huge difference for you. It doesn't need to make a difference for anybody else. It just needs to make a difference for you. And guys, don't explain. You don't need to explain to anybody about anything. Do things your way, but as always, do it without harm to others, because we don't want to move forward creating more karma, because that's actually what we do. When we harm others, we create karma for ourselves, more karma for ourselves. So just walk gently, but do what you need to do to protect yourself and to protect your healing and to protect that little cocoon that you need to be in for however long you need to be in. Don't let anyone dictate to you how, when, why you should be healing. Okay, so I hope that this just helps somebody out there. I hope that somebody takes something from this. Again, apologies that this came out a bit late, but guys, I will catch up with you probably Thursday, Friday. We've got the new moon oracle reading, and we've got some fabulous new cards to play with on that. I'm so excited. And then we've got the new moon astro guide. Okay, so do yourselves a favor. Please like, subscribe, just keep up to date. Click on the little bell thing. It'll keep you connected. The notifications will come out. I do post all over Facebook, but in case you missed that. And have yourselves a beautiful, beautiful week. Have yourselves a kind week. Be kind to yourselves this week. And I will see you on the flip side. Sending you blessings of the goddess always. Big loves. Mwah.